The restaurant went completely silent the moment I stood up from my chair. Every pair of eyes in the room expected me to laugh, make an excuse, or quietly walk away from the woman sitting across from me. They had spent weeks planning this blind date as a cruel joke, convinced that my reaction would become the funniest story in the office. Instead, what I did next left waiters wiping away tears, strangers applauding, and the very people who arranged the prank unable to look me in the eyes. By the time the afternoon sunlight faded outside the windows, nobody remembered the joke. They remembered the humanity that changed two broken lives forever. Before we begin, if you believe kindness deserves a second chance and that people should be judged by their hearts instead of their appearance, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Single Dad Empire for more unforgettable emotional stories. My name is Corbin Hale, and for years I had become the quiet target of harmless-looking office jokes. I was the dependable coworker who never complained, covered extra shifts, remembered everyone's birthdays, and stayed late whenever deadlines approached. My coworkers often mistook kindness for weakness, and although most of the teasing seemed playful, it slowly became clear that I had become the easiest person to embarrass. Every Friday lunch brought another joke at my expense, another prank everyone expected me to laugh about. I smiled because arguing would only make things worse, but inside I carried the loneliness of someone who desperately wanted genuine friendship instead of entertainment. When a group from the office insisted they had finally found the perfect blind date for me, I hesitated. They acted unusually excited, promising she was wonderful and insisting I deserved happiness. Against my better judgment, I agreed. Thanksgiving weekend had just passed, the skies were bright and clear, and the city park beside the restaurant overflowed with families enjoying the warm afternoon. I walked toward the cafe believing perhaps life had finally decided to surprise me with something good. As soon as I stepped inside, I noticed people at one corner table trying to hide their laughter behind coffee cups. A familiar coworker quickly looked away after catching my eye. That was when I realized something wasn't right. Sitting alone near the large front window was a woman named Brielle Ashcroft. She wore a simple blue dress, her curly auburn hair rested gently over her shoulders, and she nervously turned a small silver bracelet around her wrist. She was a plus-size woman, and the uncertainty in her eyes suggested she already suspected why she had been invited there. Instead of excitement, she carried the quiet exhaustion of someone who had spent years being judged before anyone bothered learning her name. The realization struck me immediately. They had not arranged this meeting because they believed we would be compatible. They believed her appearance made her the punchline. They expected me to reject her publicly so everyone hiding nearby could laugh at both of us. In that moment, the cruelest part of the prank wasn't directed at me. It was directed at a woman who had unknowingly walked into a room where strangers had already decided her worth. I walked to the table, smiled warmly, and thanked Brielle for agreeing to meet me. Relief briefly crossed her face before she apologized for looking nervous. She admitted blind dates had rarely ended well because many people lost interest the moment they saw her. I listened carefully without interrupting. For the first time that afternoon, she looked at someone who wasn't staring at her body but meeting her eyes. The lunch that followed surprised both of us. Brielle possessed a remarkable sense of humor, an incredible knowledge of children's literature, and a passion for volunteering at a local community center where she organized reading programs for children from struggling families. She laughed with genuine warmth rather than trying to impress anyone. She spoke kindly about people who had hurt her, refusing to let bitterness define her life. Every story she shared revealed extraordinary compassion hidden beneath years of unfair judgment. Halfway through the meal, I noticed several coworkers secretly recording us from another table. Their smirks revealed they were still waiting for the humiliating ending they had planned. Instead of pretending not to notice, I stood up. The restaurant became completely silent. Everyone expected rejection. Instead, I thanked Brielle for spending her afternoon with me and admitted that meeting her had been the most meaningful conversation I had enjoyed in years. Then I calmly addressed the people who had arranged the prank. I explained that someone could change their hairstyle, their clothes, or even their weight someday, but cruelty toward another human being was far harder to erase. Embarrassing someone for their appearance revealed nothing about the person being mocked and everything about the people doing the mocking. No shouting followed. No insults. Only uncomfortable silence. Several customers who had overheard the situation quietly applauded. An elderly couple stood together, and the woman gently smiled toward Brielle before telling her she deserved respect from the moment she entered the room. A waitress who had witnessed everything wiped tears from her eyes as she placed dessert on our table without charging us. One by one, the hidden laughter disappeared. Brielle struggled to hold back tears. She later admitted nobody had ever defended her publicly before. Throughout school, college, and even adulthood, people often assumed they knew everything about her based solely on appearance. They never stayed long enough to discover her generosity, intelligence, or resilience. That afternoon became the first time someone chose kindness when humiliation would have been easier. The following weeks brought unexpected consequences. The video recorded by one coworker spread online, not because the prank succeeded, but because my response reminded thousands of viewers that dignity matters. Messages poured in from people who had experienced bullying because of their appearance, disability, age, or financial situation. Parents shared the video with their children to teach empathy. Teachers used it during classroom discussions about respect. Even my company organized workshops addressing workplace bullying after realizing how deeply the incident reflected its culture. Meanwhile, Brielle and I continued meeting, not because either of us believed in fairy tale endings, but because genuine friendship had already begun. We explored bookstores, volunteered together at the Children's Reading Center, and spent sunny Saturday afternoons walking through botanical gardens where conversations flowed naturally without fear of judgment. The more I learned about her, the more I realized confidence grows strongest in people who continue choosing kindness despite repeated rejection. Months later, one little boy at the reading center handed Brielle a drawing. It showed her wearing a superhero cape while reading stories to smiling children. Across the top he had written, "Heroes help people feel important." Brielle quietly cried after seeing it because, for so many years, she had never believed anyone saw her that way. Watching that moment reminded me that the world's greatest beauty often appears where society forgets to look. Life slowly changed for both of us. I stopped measuring success by promotions or popularity. Brielle stopped apologizing for existing in spaces where she belonged all along. Together we discovered that healing rarely begins with grand romantic gestures. It begins when one person simply decides another human being deserves compassion without conditions. The co-workers who planned the prank eventually apologized sincerely. Some admitted they had never considered the emotional damage caused by jokes disguised as harmless fun. Forgiveness did not erase what happened, but it allowed everyone involved to become better than they had been before. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes kindness still matters, leave a heartfelt comment below, and subscribe to Single Dad Empire so we can continue sharing stories that inspire compassion and hope. Special request, please comment below with one act of kindness you have received, or given, that changed someone's life forever. As the afternoon sun settled behind the trees and another ordinary day came to an end, I realized something I would carry for the rest of my life. The world will always offer opportunities to judge people by what is immediately visible. Real character is revealed when we choose instead to see what cannot be measured by appearances. That blind date began as a cruel joke designed to humiliate two strangers. It ended by reminding an entire room that every person deserves respect, every heart has a story, and sometimes the most unforgettable love begins the moment someone chooses kindness over cruelty. Those who entered the restaurant expecting laughter left with tears in their eyes, not because they witnessed embarrassment, but because they witnessed the extraordinary power of simple human dignity.